We are now reconvening into open session. We only have one reportable action taken in closed session, and that is item 5E, discussed in closed session pursuant to Government Code 54956.95, and the rejection of this claim will be part of the consent agenda. I now would like to ask for approval of the agenda, including time limits, please.
I'd like to suggest that we move item 12A up in front of the student trustee reports, because we have a lot
Correct,
of people
yes.
for 12A out there.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Great, thank you. Do we have any public comments on the consent agenda? Do any fellow trustees wish to remove any item from the consent agenda for discussion? Can I ask for a motion then to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. This is a roll call vote. Mary?
Ms. Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Ford?
Aye.
Ms. Hartlander?
Aye.
Ms. Owen?
Aye.
And Mr. Fetterman?
Aye.
Okay. Now for the fun. So we'd like to welcome the Tahitian exchange students. When did you arrive? Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Hello. Good evening,
Good evening.
Board and Dr. Topier. I am Liz Chacon, Assistant Principal over at Drake High School, and wanted to welcome the Tahitians they do an exchange program each year with Drake High School, and every year we have Tahitians come visit our school for 2 weeks. They came in on Monday, arriving on Sunday evening, and just did a wonderful dance presentation as they met some of our French students and our leadership students, and presented a song to them that then our students learned, and had a lot of fun and a breakfast together. And then after 2 weeks of doing some local travels and attending classes, it all finalizes with them doing a dance in our little theater. So if anyone wants to come join to see that, it's just an amazing presentation. And so thank you. Welcome again to Drake High. And then our exchange program piece of this is that our own French teacher, Tahia Rosenthal-Cox, then takes 20 of our Drake High students over to over to Tahiti for the exchange. And so I was going to call her up so that she can introduce some of her counterparts in the program. So thank you.
Good evening. I'm so nervous. I hate talking in public. Good evening. Thank you for welcoming us and our counterparts. Quick introduction. Philippe. So Philippe Newfer tu es le président du conseil d'administration. He's the president of the board for the school. Voilà. And then we have our 30 students, and we're so excited to go in April, and we have all kinds of activities for them by the minute, by the second. They go, they come, they come, they go, they share, they exchange. It's so far, it's been wonderful for the 8th year we're doing this. So I think they're ready to perform. Vous êtes prêts? C'est bon? Oui? OK, on y va.
Oh, I thought they were expecting a show. I felt bad. They're going to give us one.
Oh, no, they're coming out of the bathroom.
The first dance you're going to see is a haka, which is a warrior dance. Most Polynesian islands have those dances, like, you've heard about, the Maoris have it. Well, the Samoans and Tahitians have it too. The second one you're going to see is a dance which is sung at the same time. It's called Aparima in Tahitian. And the last one is Okay, OTI will be the last one, it's closing one. It's going to be both the boys and the girls dancing together. So enjoy.
If they all join into passionately doing the haka, this is gonna be amazing. Like if they do it passionately, they're so serious as well. They're all in like magic.
Test. Whanomeira e tahi taata. Nā te aroa mai. I te era, i te hoe whenua, ahi hou. Te piha aha noa ra. Me raroroa mai i te tei. E rahu, nā rua hatu, te atua o te moana. Parau aturo oia i te maua. Atira, atira, ia hou, ato tere. Ti aturi era i te manu, ia whamai e iora.
for the same time. New Zealand does that at the beginning of their rugby games, and oh my god, it's cool. Because they film it, oh cool, you know? Dude, look. Dude, that guy sitting I'm not triggering you. I'm sorry. I'm not triggering you. I'm not political. I make fun of things. That's where I get that. I'm political. Whoa. I was thinking about not going. This is amazing. Yeah. No, if they get to me. I think of me as like Seinfeld in my life. I think it's a good way to think of life, you know? That sounded egotistical. That is how I look at life, you know? Just nothing.
There's some treats for you on the side counter.
I'm gonna.
There's snacks for any students.
After this.
Thank you.
That's a good thing. I have a lot of friends. Other people staying.
Thank you. That was so special.
Well, I'm Brian Zalian, Director of Global Studies. I first want to say, thank you to all of you. I know several of you are leaving very soon, and we'll be having a new group here who may or may not know about Global Studies, but I wanted to thank you for supporting everyone. How does this happen? How does it come together? What makes this happen in front of you? Well, we have students, we have parents, and we have a board, and most importantly, we have a mission statement. We have a mission statement that speaks of experiential learning, which I am glad is in there because, as you can see, it really touches everybody. And I hope that in the future, we continue growing. We have more programs, more students, so that the students here at the Tamalpais Union High School District can experience life outside the classroom. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I think now we'll get ready to move on to student trustee reports, but we'll give them a minute to leave. It'll be a little noisy. Thank you again, everyone. Does anyone wish to go first? Or should we just start from one end and go to the other end? Maddie, let's start at that end and have you go first.
So, Drake is good. Yes, as you all know, the Tahitians are here. We're all very excited. They will often accompany their host to their classes, so not just the French classes get to talk and interact with the Tahitians, so that's really fun. Everyone always gets really excited. And of course, the performance, if you are going to come, we're this year doing a sign-up on the Drake website because so many people want to come and our theater isn't big enough to seat everyone. So you need to sign up, and seats will probably eventually start going fairly quickly.
When is it, Maddie? Do you know?
It's at the end of their stay, and they just got here, and I believe they're staying 2 weeks. And I believe it's during a tutorial. But I think it's on the website. Yeah, so then in other news, so a long while ago, but the first day of school for Drake went well, but one of the things is Drake's group SOAR, our branch of SOAR, did a presentation against microaggressions, which the presentation itself went well, but we've sort of experienced a bit of, not backlash, but as students do, using things in the presentation to make light of issues that people shouldn't be making light of. So SOAR right now is sort of thinking how they should address that, because clearly another presentation like this might not be the best thing to do, and sort of what they should do around people making jokes about something being a microaggression when it isn't, just using that term willy-nilly. Yeah, so then after that we had our first student senate meeting. And in Student Senate, we're continuing on doing small groups to try to tackle multiple issues. So some of those groups we're continuing to look at how we run our leadership elections to try to make sure that those are open to all of Drake, making sure all of Drake votes, but then also making sure that we get a wide variety of people running for elections, and we're trying to not have any positions run unopposed, which still a couple had last year. And then another one is classes. Every year we've sort of added classes, but just looking at classes again this year. And then another one is SLCs, and looking at just maybe ways we can improve SLCs. And a lot of the students have been feeling a bit disappointed with how SLCs have sort of fallen out and trying to solve some of the problems with them and also with how they are presented to incoming freshmen. And then also looking at dress code and maybe trying to revise the Drake dress code and just seeing what we want to represent as a school with our dress code and our principles. And then also clubs and making sure different clubs are represented. And then water polo has just, our boys water polo team is in MCALs, I believe. So yes, that's very exciting. That just happened, so we're all very excited. Yes, and then finally, Halloween's tomorrow. So we're gonna do a bunch of activities during lunch, like a photo booth, and we're also doing our first costume contest at lunch tomorrow. So everyone's very excited for that. That's it. Thank you.
That's a lot. Thank you very much. A lot of good information.
Okay, so at Redwood, leadership just finished up a breast cancer awareness campaign for the month of October. So the first week of October was actually homecoming week, so we had activities at lunch every day of that week. We had like trivia for the homecoming royalty on the court. And a couple days we had like blow up stuff on the lawn, and lots of kids would stay in, not go out to lunch, and we had like those wipeout balls. I don't know if you guys know what that is. So yeah, stuff like that was really fun. So that was going on at lunch. But then the next couple weeks after that, those Fridays, leadership passed out breast cancer pens. They stood at the flagpole over there and passed them out before school. And then last Friday, they passed out pink beads. And I think we got about 400 of them, which isn't a ton, but I think about everyone that got them wore them all day. So it was super cool to see that. Parking permit applications were just sent out. They're due tomorrow. So a lot's changed with our parking policy. There's been kind of a negative reaction, but I think deep down students understand why we're making these changes, but they are upset because we're not allowed to go out to lunch anymore. There's going to be assigned spots, and there's restrictions on who can get a permit. So students are a little upset about that, but I think they understand why that needed to be done. In sports news, varsity football was the co-champion of MCALs. They have playoffs this weekend. Girls field hockey was seeded second in the MCAL league, and that was the first year that they've actually had a league. So it was put together by the Redwood coach, Jen Reedy, so that was pretty cool for them. And the JV girls won their league, and they actually only let in one goal all season, so they were undefeated. Oh, wow. Yeah, my sister's the goalie, so that's how I know that. Freshman, sophomore football was undefeated, and they also won MCALs. And then, like Maddie said, tomorrow's Halloween. Redwood has done a costume contest every year, except last year we were forced to cancel it. But this year it's back on, and it's considered one of the most successful events at Redwood. Lots of kids dress up. We have 4 different categories, and people get really into it. And staff do it too. They dress up, they put on little skits. So lots of people go to the amphitheater and they watch that. So that's going to be exciting for tomorrow, to have that back. And then in leadership and in ASB, we have an open forum, and we've been talking a lot about elections and whether to put a spending cap on that to make it available for people of all socioeconomic backgrounds. Because right now it sort of feels like there's a barrier between that, because people feel like they have to get all these supplies for posters, and a lot of people have recently started putting out like Instagram and Snapchat ads. So people have just been spending a lot more to win these elections, and people think that's what they need to do. So leadership's been talking about maybe putting a limit on that, or banning certain things, or maybe making a certain area of the school where people can put up posters. So we've been talking about that a lot. And that's all.
Thank you, Lauren. That was very helpful. So, Kara? Is it Kara or Kara?
It's Kara.
Good. Okay.
Sorry.
So TAM's pretty good. I think it's the happiest like I've felt and I've seen students. Like it's just like a very good vibe from the past like couple years that I've been there. Like it just TAM's at a really good high point. We had our first TAM Unity Day last Friday, so that's where we have an extended lunch. Our tutorials cut 20 minutes shorter, and we have an hour-long lunch. And we brought in 4 food trucks, which all were really successful. We have condom certification. We have events for kind of like staff and students to bond and to kind of get kids like kind of mixing up their groups and stuff. So we had pumpkin decorating. We had our GSA, did a kind of like a flashcard thing to try and get kids to understand the goals of their club a little bit more. They changed their Gender Sexuality Alliance. And we had other fun activities from clubs. It was the most successful one that we've had. We started doing them last year. And it was the most kind of diverse one that we had. We had more groups representing. It wasn't just leadership. We had a student versus staff dodgeball game, which was very heated. And then 2 weeks ago, all of our leadership organizations on campus went to the Mill Valley Community Center for a whole day of equity training. So you had an hour and a half long training on race, and then hour and a half long training on LGBTQ+. Plus planning time, so that was our leadership, our SOAR, our Black Student Union, Students of Color, ADVID, Link Crew, Peer Mentoring, all of our organizations, which was really great. I took a lot away from it. I think a lot of students did. We're trying to see if we can maybe get that for more kids on campus. Our PTA sponsored a screening of the Hate U Give for all students that were in BSU, Students of Color, SOAR, Ethnic Studies, or any of those kind of racially toned organizations, or then at the end they opened it up to anyone who was interested. I went, it was really great, recommend. But it was really powerful for students of color and white students to all see. It was a very bonding moment. And then our SOAR program, we stole Drake's presentation. It's gotten really positive at TAM. We've done it in, I think, 6 classes so far. So SOAR's been going to classes, mainly the AP Comp teachers love it, so that's the main class that's asking for it. But we're trying to figure out a way to get that in more classes with SOAR kids missing the least amount of school. And then our SOAR organization was offered to do a panel at the Mill Valley School District with some of the students because they're going to screen the Not in Our Town Light in the Darkness film. So they're trying to kind of connect the SOAR with the middle schoolers to kind of make it a more fluid transition from the MVMS, which is pretty much all white, when they get to TAM, where you have the Sausalito Marin School District coming in, which is a lot more diverse. And yeah, we're just trying to figure out how we can kind of keep this positive momentum going and balance the academic challenges that come with the fall and winter as finals are slowly creeping up, with the social and emotional, kind of like getting that balance right so we can keep this vibe going.
That's very good. I have a quick question before we go to Luke. You said that you have gone to the AP Comp classes, is that right? And what kind of presentation is it, and how long is it?
It's like 45 minutes, I think, and it's just kind of about microaggressions, what they are, how you can interrupt them, how they can be kind of very blunt, and how they can be more secret and you might not understand, and then how just like the effects that they are. So a lot of teachers, like we had it in my English class, and they're really trying to tie it into like a lot of us are reading a book about a black boy that's about growing up as an African American in the U.S., so they're kind of tying it into the curriculum, which has been really cool.
And Maddie, is that and that's the one that you borrowed from Drake? Is that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We did it on the first day of school.
Oh, okay.
We did a bunch of activities on the first day of school, which people rotated through their crew, so that was one of them. Yeah. And then we took it and changed it a little bit, and then presented it.
Oh, well, thank
Collaboration.
you. A lot of good information. Thank you. So Luke, you're up next.
At SignOn, we celebrated Hispanic Heritage Month with a school-wide event that was organized by leadership. It incorporated Hispanic culture, art, and food that I won't dare attempt to pronounce. I took French. 74% of students earned 80% of attended credits or more for the first grading period, so that's good numbers for SignOn. And we have partnered with the county to offer a 6-week course in public speaking, which is currently underway. And we are beginning to plan our annual food and clothing drives in preparation for the holiday season, which is right around the corner. And the goal is to collect 1 ton of food to donate to Marin and San Francisco food banks. And so that's about it.
That's very good. Thank you.
Okay.
Charlotte.
So Tamalpais is doing really well. Independent study has finally settled down with all the new students coming in. I talked to a few of the new students about how they like their core teachers and sort of the homework that they receive. It's definitely different from the main schools. They said they had to adjust a lot, planning their schedules, working around that, but they have adjusted. With the SysRoom, which is supervised independent study, it's sort of a computer lab / library with a librarian, Jenny, who sort of watches over everyone. It's really sort of 50-50 about who likes it and who's really who likes it and who's really productive in it, and then who is more productive at home, sort of on their own. So a lot of people truly like their SIS hours and come in extra SIS hours, and then others just come in for the mandatory 4 hours a week. Also, tomorrow, during Halloween, the junior and senior advisories are going over to Redwood to go to their wellness center since we do not have one. I am really excited for that, sort of to learn what they have to offer. I assume we're going to be getting some education on just wellness in general. Over in CEC, Counseling Enriched Classroom, they just went on a field trip to the Academy of Sciences to learn about coral reefs and how to protect them. It really went along to what they were learning in their science classroom, and they really liked how it was hands-on learning. So I think it was really influential to them, and they really enjoyed it. Finally, Team Kids. Team Kids. They just went on a hike at Stinson. It was beautiful views. They enjoyed it. It was their first hike since they got back from their backpacking trip, so it was sort of just getting back out there. Oh, and then finally, yearbook just started. We had our first meeting last Wednesday, and our next meeting is tomorrow. We sort of picked our theme. We are thinking sort of the years, 60s for freshmen, 70s for sophomores, 80s for juniors, and 90s for seniors. And we're thinking of incorporating music with that. So we're going to see how that goes, and we're excited to start working. Another big thing with yearbook, this isn't for sure yet, but we're thinking of incorporating spirit days into it this year, sort of getting more student energy, sort of getting sort of more dressing up, sort of what Redwood and the other big schools do. So we're excited for that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Charlotte. It was very good. I think that's always, there's always so much information you provide from week to week. Sometimes when I look back on the notes, I wish we'd followed up and asked for follow-on information. So I think we'll try and do more of that. So thank you. And so now next is the superintendent's report. So I'll hand it to you.
Good evening, everyone. So tonight I started by reflecting on my last report, in which I ended by stating, let's see what can happen if we open up ourselves and are more inclusive and accepting of others. Unfortunately, recent events in Kentucky and Pennsylvania have demonstrated what can happen if we don't do that. It's in times like these that I try to lean hard on my core values to guide me in action and thought. I have been reflecting on the values of caring, inclusion, and continuous improvement as of late. It's all too easy to separate oneself from such heinous acts as the ones we've seen and claim that I stand with the victims I care, which I hope and I believe we all do. However, standing with victims and demonstrating caring takes more than thoughts and intentions. It takes action and resilience. Actions such as not being a bystander when a hateful comment is made about or violent action is taken against a person for their perceived difference, be that race, ethnicity, religion, gender identity, ability, immigration status, sexual orientation, etc. Not remaining silent in the face of derogatory speech, whether it be couched in a joke or said directly as an affront. For me, engaging in these types of action are part of my own plan for continuous improvement. I have to remind myself when faced with these difficult times that they are an opportunity to be a better person, to start with the personal, local, and immediate, to ask myself, what can I do to make this world a little bit better? I'd like to reiterate what I wrote yesterday in my communication. Hate-motivated behavior and prejudice tears at the fabric of our society as an affront to what we in the TAM district stand for and strive to demonstrate. In the face of adversity, it is predicated upon us to continue to engender a culture that includes unconditional acceptance of all members of our community. Each time we are faced with hate-motivated speech and or violence, we have a choice in how we respond. As recent events have evoked a range of emotions from students and staff, it's an opportunity for us to model empathy and compassion for one another. I have confidence in our students and staff to embody the values above. I know that we're a vibrant and strong community, and for that, I am really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Tara. We'll now move on to trustee considerations, and we'll move on to item 12B, review English language learner annual achievement report. And looks like that's Kim Stifler.
Come on,
And,
team.
well, it's more than
on, team.
a few more people. Sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good.
Good. So I'm Kim, and this is Lorraine. She is my EL coordinator at Drake High School. And this is Debbie. She's the EL coordinator at Redwood High School. And unfortunately, Nikki had a family thing that popped up last minute, so she's unable to be here tonight, but we will do our best in her stead. You have an extensive report in front of you, so I'm not going to go through that. I'm going to just kind of hit on some highlights because I really want to turn it over to my teammates back here because they have the grassroots experiential component to really share with you, which is the heart of our English Learner program. So this is us. We've evolved over time. We used to have just one district EL coordinator who was Mike Levinson, who oversaw the whole program. Since then, we've grown and expanded, and we now have coordinators at each one of our large schools. Wanted to anchor us in just a definition around what an English learner is. This is Tanya Ward Singer. Our English learners come with a wide range of English backgrounds and languages, as you'll see, and the interesting thing to note is that English learners are as diverse from one another as they are from our broader native English speaking population, which is fantastic. We have a variety of laws and regulations that we need to abide by that are important to point out. Federal law requires us to serve our English learners to the same level as their native English-speaking peers. We need to teach them how to learn English. We have to teach them the state-mandated content standards, and we need to provide them equal access and opportunity to all that we have to offer. Additionally, it's federal law that we avoid any unnecessary segregation of EL students. So for the most part, our EL students are mainstreamed in classes with also they're in some support classes. And we are also mandated to provide professional development for staff. And that's the role of my team back here with a larger team working with them at the sites. The federal guidelines are very clearly aligned to the California state guidelines. Again, teach the students English, make sure that they learn the content standards. And these are very closely aligned with our district LCAP goals. The important piece to point out here is our English learner goals is that we add a social emotional component to these goals to make sure that these students are feeling connected and safe at school and have a community. Some recent shifts to point out is with the onset of Common Core and new standards, the ELD also has new standards. They are aligned to Common Core. And in response, just like we shifted to the SBAC testing, we had to shift the state-mandated testing. So you'll see a little bit of a disconnect in our longitudinal data due to the different shifts in testing and standards. The CELTS was the test of years past. The LPAC is the test of now. We just had our first round of summatives last spring and our first initial assessments this fall. And so we don't have longitudinal data really for the LPAC, so I'll give some highlights. But the reason for the shift was a change in this the state standards. In terms of our demographics, just as the big schools in our general population has grown over time, so has our English learner population. In 2013, we only had 36 English learners. That's tripled in size. We currently have 110, sitting the largest at Redwood and Tam, then Drake, only 2 at San Andreas, and currently, unfortunately, none at Tamescal. Important to note that our EL students are disproportionately low socioeconomic status, around 61%, so that requires some additional support in those areas. And we have 17 different languages that currently are being served in our EL program, which makes it, I bet, a very robust and exciting classroom experience. In terms of our data, just some highlights. This is how the current state testing measures. Hi, Michael.
Can we go back a couple of slides?
Yes.
Where is mom spoken?
In Guatemala.
Really?
Yeah, we have a student who moved from Guatemala, who that's his native language. Spanish is his second language, and now English is his third. Yeah.
And what about Tigrinya?
I'm guessing that's from TAM, and I'm not too sure. I can make a guess, but I don't want to.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So this shows the buckets in terms of performance in English proficiency levels, right? From a level 1 is emerging to a level 4 is upper bridging, as they call it now. These measure the levels of English proficiency of our students and help us identify the appropriate services to provide them in English instruction. And currently, about 2/3 of our students are in the level 3 and 4, so they're moving more towards proficiency, and we have about 34 that are still in the low to mid levels of proficiency. So that helps us determine the level of support that we provide them as they're on their journey to becoming proficient in English. In terms of our academics, we have some work to do here. Historically, our EL students have scored lower on standardized tests. They do have lower GPAs. They show a greater number of Ds and Fs, and they do not access college at the same rates. That said, we have seen some progress, so we're going to highlight some positives and acknowledge that we have work to do in these areas to ensure equal opportunity and access for English learners. Go. It's probably an internet issue, maybe? Yeah. I'm sorry. There you go.
That language is spoken in Ethiopia.
Oh, did you Google it?
Yeah.
Nice. Good job.
Well, the internet's working for somebody. Thank you.
Extra credit for Kara.
All right, it should be on the one that says English proficiency. There. Nope. Yep. Down. There. Perfect. So again, one of the ways that we measure progress is by seeing the gains on an annual basis in English proficiency of our students. This particular chart, we did a comparison of English learners that are in our support programs, meaning they're enrolled in ELD or an EL academic workshop, compared to our EL students who are not. And what this shows is that our EL students who are in our programs for English learners are doing better than our EL students who are not in our support programs. Evidence uses evidence to support that our programs are working for EL students who are in them. That's a repeat. Keep going. Again, with our academics, acknowledging that our English learners are not performing academically at the same rates, this chart also shows that English learners who are within one of our programs for English learners are doing better. They have fewer Ds and Fs than our English learners who are not in one of our EL programs. We also measure our success by reclassification, which means are our students becoming proficient in English? And so we look at the rate of reclassification, which is the percentage of our EL students that are deemed to be proficient in English on an annual basis. And this has remained relatively stable over time. And in terms of our support, your appendix in your report has a lengthy description. I'm going to highlight, this is the most extensive support we've had for English learners in the last 10 years, if not more. We have an English learner leadership team. We meet twice a month, every two weeks as a team, the four of us. And then we have a larger team that's inclusive of site-based administrators, site-based counselors, site-based EL paraeducators, and ELD and academic workshop teachers. Then we have a district team, and we meet about 5 times a year also to provide targeted support, and the purpose is to ensure, again, equal outcomes and equitable opportunities for English learners. We have ELD, English Language Development Programs, at each of the 3 big schools. We have English Learner Academic Workshop, which is a support class at both Tam and Redwood. Currently not at Drake. They have smaller numbers, but we're hoping to expand in that area. Overall, all of our teaching staff are qualified to teach English learners. My team behind me provides ongoing professional development strategies and tips for teachers, and we have ongoing teacher collaboration, site-based and across the district in this area. In terms of student support, my counterparts provide individual learning plans for students, similar to an IEP, but not, because these students are not necessarily students with special needs according to special ed, but we provide personalized learning plans. We cluster students in core academic classes to limit the amount of contacts that the coordinators have with teachers and provide students space to interact with their English learner counterparts. We have amazing peer tutors that push into our classes, ELD and ELD academic workshops. We provide translations. We recently adopted an online course program that translates core academic content into 60 different languages to allow our English learners to access that content in their native language. We also have tons of community building, field trips they can tell you about, and we really try to develop positive climate, community, and relationships. Now I want to let, if you guys go back, Mary, thank you. Let each of my site coordinators, Debbie and Lorraine, talk from their vantage point, because they're on the grassroots of this, and they do such an amazing job.
I'll start from Drake. So our program is super brand new. It started last year. We had an EL coordinator and an ELD teacher and an EL paraeducator and the ELD class. And there were a little bit of bumps in the road just trying to get everything off the ground and going. But this year, the big deal for me anyway, now being an EL coordinator, is that I have a release period also, and that helps to manage the testing side of it and also trying to get in touch with parents. But more importantly, and the thing that I spend the most time doing, is reaching out to teachers and supporting my ELD students that way. Also, a really nice thing that has helped is there have been a couple of teachers that have been willing to give up their preps and come in and work with our students. A couple of our students, one science teacher in particular, has recently given up close to 3 hours of her prep time. The other thing that I'm really looking forward to, because right now I'm working really closely with our ELD students, and we just, a new student just registered on Friday, so instead of 6, we have 7, and that makes 21 EL students at Drake. But while I've been concentrating on our ELD students the most, that's what I've had time to do, what I'm really looking forward to is supporting more of the whole entire EL population. And going forward, I'm really excited about hopefully pulling as many of those students into AVID as possible, because I'm also the AVID coordinator and an AVID teacher, and finding other ways to support them. I don't know if we'll be able to get an AW for Drake in the future, but for right now, we're doing a little bit of that AW support in the ELD class as well as during our Drake tutorial time.
What is AW?
Academic workshop.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. And kind of like a study hall or a time for them. Yeah, okay. So, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. And the exciting thing for the students is we have a couple of field trips on the agenda coming up. Definitely one in a week. We're going to piggyback with Debbie McCrae and the rest of the Redwood students to go to the California Academy of Science. And then next semester, I'm trying to get Angel Island on the agenda for the students to see a little bit of our history in the Bay. Yeah, thank you.
All right, hello. So from Redwood, we've seen our students have a lot of success recently, as measured especially by their participation in many school activities. In the report, we mentioned all of our upperclassmen went to prom. All of them who graduated in our program are in college. Actually, they're all at College of Marin. And they've all visited us and talked to the current kids. A lot of mentoring going on from the students. We have students in the leadership class now, peer resource and link crew. So we see that as a huge success, even to have one English learner involved in the school newspaper. Our para-educator is the most special person. She is a Redwood graduate and an EL herself. And so she is such an inspiration for our students. Her name is Senia Rodriguez, and she's making a huge difference in their lives, as are the over a dozen peer tutors. So we did like a recruitment extravaganza in the spring, and the counselors helped. And we have over a dozen Redwood students who have volunteered one period a day to either come into the ELD classes, or what I think is even more exceptional is into mainstream classes like science, math, English, history. And they go there every day, where we have a cluster of maybe 5 English learners, and they help. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see. So that's been very successful. I think it all lends into just a wonderful sense of community that we have at Redwood in our EL program. My classroom, room 130, You're Always All Welcome, is always full of kids before school, lunch, after school. It's their safe place where they hang out, and it's a great community. I also wanted to mention that our teachers of the cluster students have been so wonderful. So a lot of them have up to like 12 English learners spread throughout the day, and they have signed up to be part of, we have a collaborative professional development model right now at Redwood with David Sondheim, where we meet about 6 times a semester, and we have over a dozen teachers who have volunteered to be in the EL PLC, if you will. So they're giving all this time, all these ideas, energy. So there's so much positivity around the program at Redwood, and our leadership team at Redwood includes David and myself, the counselor, and the paraeducator. We meet weekly to discuss students, the program. So we're really dedicating a lot of time and energy. And we saw in the spring, we only had 3 students in our program on the DFI list. So it was amazing. So I feel like the model that we're using right now, if it's given enough focus and time and this energy of the whole community, it has, it really is a good model. And especially now under Kim's tutelage, where we meet every couple weeks, and all of the sites are becoming more coordinated, like we're going on this field trip together. It's just, I feel like it's working really well for the kids. So I think that's all I have to say. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Just one last slide with reflections and recommendations. You can actually scroll down to the next one, please, Mary. And on that, I just wanted to also acknowledge David Sondheim, who's taken a lead as the admin in charge of English learners at Redwood, and Liz Chacon, who's taken on the admin role as the English language leader at Drake. And we couldn't do it without that site admin support, too. So in reflection, we acknowledge that we have made huge gains and we have much more work to do. Our programs have shown to be successful for the students who are in them, and the qualitative feedback from staff is overwhelmingly positive. Our recommendation, therefore, is to kind of stay the course. This has evolved and deepened over time, and we're really kind of at a place where it's really focused and in a really good spot, and that we're going to continue to strengthen our work as we are right now, and we thank you for your support. So if you have any questions, we'll open it up to you. And
Thank you. We'll just open it up for student trustees or trustees at the table.
How come you think there are no students at Tamascal?
I'm not sure. That's one of my questions on that one. We're small, and in order to mitigate that, we've actually had conversations around going out and recruiting around team pathways and IS by going directly into the ELD classes as a way to get more students at Tamascal.
I also do have a question. So you said there are some EL students who aren't a part of our program. Is the program like self-selecting, or is there a way to also help these students?
Yeah, so the ELD class, it stands for English Language Development, and that is the class for students who earn a score. I don't know if you remember the spectrum, so if they fall on the emerging side of knowing English into the expanding, in other words, the middle, they need to be in the ELD class because that's where they practice and acquire English. And so students who have done well enough on the test to show that they're bridging into being more proficient in English, they don't need to be in the class anymore, and they're in all of the regular general ed classes. And so right now, as it stands at Drake, we don't have, so for example, at TAM and Redwood, they have an AW class specifically for any EL student who needs extra support in their gen ed classes. We don't have that at Drake right now. But the one thing that I'm super excited about is just coincidentally, AVID is new also, and is another place where we can pull in any student really, but especially EL students that would like some support and want to be accelerated and pushed.
Anyone else?
Chuck. I've got a question. Do we have a breakdown of what year, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior, these students are arriving with us? You know, how many, how many, like ninth graders do we get that we've got 4 years to work with, and how many seniors are showing up?
It totally varies. I can get you the data if it's not in our demographic report, but to show you, but it varies, right?
Yeah, I mean, just at Drake alone, the student that was registered just a few days ago, last week, he's a freshman, but I have a student, she's with us this year, and she came in at the end of the school year last year, or the midway point, and she came in as a junior. But in terms of our specific program at Drake, we have a couple freshmen, couple sophomores, a junior, and a senior.
We do. One important factor is we like to start them as sophomores, because if they have 3 years prior to college, then they get AB 540, they get in-state tuition. So, yeah. But another point is that a lot of the students, it's transient. So unfortunately, a lot of students start and then they move on, or they move home. So it's rare to have a freshman who finishes. Last year I had 2, and we had a huge party because after 4 years, 0 English to graduating with a diploma and confident and passing government, and doing their mock Senate bill and all these successes, but it really varies. I got a new enrollee too yesterday, so that's kind of the nature of this program, and that's why they're English learners, right? Their families move here. A lot of them, their families, they're living with an aunt or grandma, or just a very non-traditional families. So all the support we can give them, the socio-emotional support is very needed, yeah.
So with the transiency, you don't really know when they're going to go.
And, that's why attendance, I think, is a really interesting data point. And when the students come to school, I'm happy, right, when they're there, when they're learning, when they're there. As a teacher, right, Barbara, how to have the students present. And we've done a really good job, I think, of working on attendance with this population. Yeah, and helping. We even help when they're absent, they call us in Spanish or Portuguese, and then we pass along the message, because there's that other barrier for their families as well. There's so many barriers. So it's really on us to try to make them a part of the community in whatever way we can. Welcome their parents or their families in any way we can.
To that point, also, a lot of our students are expected to work, and so if they like to have a free period so they can get extra hours to go work, or on the weekends they're working lots of hours and they're not doing easy jobs like hostess at a restaurant or working in a clothing store. I mean, they're doing manual labor, they're doing construction like roofing or other things, they're cleaning houses, they're doing a lot of things that take up a lot of energy, and they're not doing it just for extra money in their own pocket. They're doing it to support their own families as well. Yeah.
Wow.
Question, comment? First of all, I want to thank all of you and the administrators as well. Back in my day, there was no such program, and you just figured it out. My question about figuring it out relates to what extent are English teachers involved in looking at that test, that range, that scale, if you will. None of those words make any sense to me at all. Presumably they make sense to you. But those test items, are they translated, or if you will, broken down, so that other teachers can learn from them? In other words, does it fall in the area of predication, conjugations, and so on? Can a teacher get that information from that exam?
I think Kim alluded to the EL plans that we create, and so it's on us, and Lorraine talked about it also, how we spend a lot of our time as coordinators working with the teachers specifically about the students and explaining where their language issues exist and suggesting appropriate modifications, or what's the better word? Strategies to help them be successful. And the teachers are very open to it. So like on a multiple choice test, we might say, it's going to take this student 3 times as long to read 5 options. Let's knock it down to 3. Or better yet, let's do an open-ended question for this newcomer. Or even better yet, let's have them test in their native language, and we can provide translation support. So we get super creative helping teachers to help the student. So the test is very Common Core. I administered it. There was a science question about satellites. There were questions about a wide range of topics. So I think it's just kind of on us to understand what is expected to be successful and how to coach the teachers to provide the opportunities for the students to be successful, because the teachers want that. We've seen that over and over again. the teachers want their students to be successful. They just sometimes, if you have 150 students, it's overwhelming. But if one of us can take a few moments to just say, hey, let's try this or that, and I'll help you, or then they're like, great. So that's kind of our job, I think, to translate what the test means. Yeah.
And I just want to, you are taking note of the absence rates of this particular group,
Yes.
right? So, thank you.
I have a question, two questions. One is, I was looking at that scale that Barbara just referenced, and I'm wondering if one of you can maybe give us an idea of what a typical schedule might look like for, say, a sophomore who's in the emerging or low expanding, the 1-2 level, versus a sophomore who's level 3 and 4. And the reason I thought of this is something that Lorraine said about, or I can't remember which one of our student trustees, I think it was Maddie, asked about AVID. And, I'm wondering if there's a lot of our EL students are also in AVID. No, there's no overlap?
I have one student, one of my ELD students is in my AVID class.
Just one. So if you took a sophomore, an EL learner who's a sophomore, and she's in level 1-2, that category, and her friend is in level 3-4, how does their schedule differ?
The main difference would be whether or not the student is enrolled in ELD, for English Language Development, and or the EL Academic Workshop class. We're definitely going to capture more of those level 1-2s in those classes, whereas at the 3 or 4 level, they might just have one of them or none of them, depending on how they're doing in English. The rest of the classes are as on point with their grade level as we can get them based on where they are.
Okay, and so there is not much overlap with AVID. I'm just trying to think.
I mean, there can be. It just depends on their language proficiency, because AVID is meant to accelerate students while giving them the tools to perform as well as they can in whatever classes they have. And so my hope is that while I might not have a student who is at the emerging level in AVID, as they start to move into the expanding level, I can pull them into AVID. And that way, they're learning how we do school in the U.S. at a higher level, and they can be in those more advanced classes.
Okay, thank you. And then the second question is about that social and emotional element. And Debbie, I loved when you were talking about how that vibe is just different at Redwood, feels really different. And I'm wondering, I know it's hard to get parental involvement, and then that's a big part of everything for every student. So I'm wondering if we have anything for the families, the grandparents, the guardians, whomever, to help them feel part of the community as well.
I was just going to say, not yet so much at Drake. I'm trying. But that is definitely a goal for by the end of the year to have a few family events. And I have some ideas from talking to Debbie about how she incorporates that, so I'll let her give me.
Well, David and I did just a back to school night. We extended an invitation to parents to come an hour and a half early with food. And we had a great turnout. So the students invited their families. It was successful. We also do that at open house. So we do like a pre-party, if you will, and then we encourage them to stay. But I think they really feel like the ELD classroom is their home, is their community, and the kids want to show their families that place. We also have a lot of celebrations in the Redwood ELD program. We had a graduation party. Kim actually came, and the families attended that. And we have different parties where we invite families, like at lunch, and we invite the cluster teachers, and we invite the peer tutors, and we really just try to create the community whatever opportunity we can. But I agree with you, getting the parents, or I just keep saying parents, I mean to say the families at school comfortable is huge. You know, and we had them all signed up for e-school. We had all the laptops out. We were showing them in multiple languages how to check their kids' attendance and what to do in this and that case. So, but it's a big job.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing that.
Thanks.
Thank you very, very much. It was a very nice presentation. Thank you. Look forward to hearing the progress.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So next, we have Dr. Topier, ninth grade mathematics placement.
Thanks, ELD team.
Bye.
Okay, good evening, everybody. Tonight, I'm going to present our, as I like to call it, the SB 359 data or report, and that is our math placement for ninth graders. Just a quick review. This is what we're going to cover tonight. This is required by the state now, as of 2016. As a reminder of what SB 359 is, this was a mandate by the state that all schools that serve grades 9 through 12 provide an assessment, a common assessment to all incoming ninth graders for math placement in order to ensure that all students have equal access to high-level math classes. Our board policy actually is going to be updated this tonight. It's coming up, but it was first adopted in August of 2016, and it establishes both the policy and the protocols for placing students in ninth grade math. So the criteria for placement that we use the score on what is known as our ELMA, or entry-level mathematics assessment. This was a collaborative development with our math task force, feeder district administrators, and teachers as well. So we use that. We use their 8th grade math course, as well as the grade that they earned in their 8th grade math course. We're not allowed to use teacher recommendation as a primary consideration, but we can consult with teachers. Yeah.
How close are the 8th grade math courses in our feeder districts? Are they similar?
They are now because of Common Core. Yeah, they're more similar. And I'm going to talk about it in a minute. We saw a little dip in Algebra 1 in the 8th grade, but now it's coming back up. So here are the math placement percentages for each course by ethnicity. So what this provides you is, this is the total population across the top. So the number of African American students in the 9th grade across our district, what percentage they make up. And then the number in Algebra Foundations, what percentage of that course total they comprise. So this is our overall placement data for our 9th grade class. So when you go across, that's like the 100% of Algebra Foundations. So as you can see, a large percentage of our kids are in Algebra 1. Yeah.
Does Algebra Foundations count towards our district graduation requirements?
It does. It counts as a year of math.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't count for CSU or UC?
It does not count towards, it's not a UC-approved math course, correct?
Mm-hmm. Are we, is there any attempt, particularly around geometry, at looking at what our English fluency skills are for our students? Because some of our youngsters have English fluency issues, and they're not English is not a second language.
I see what you're saying, yeah.
Are we looking at that at all in terms
Yeah,
of how
If you go around to math classes now, I don't know if the students can chime in. A lot of the classes I've been in lately have, an element of academic language is built in, and they're doing more, they're sitting in groups and they're using, some of them, in some of the classrooms I've seen prompts, they're using academic language keys that are specific to math, like math terms. And highlighting that language. So I think building in that mathematical literacy is part of what I'm seeing in the classes.
Sorry, I spilled water everywhere.
It's okay. That's one way to not talk about math. But as you can see, as I was saying, a majority of, 50% of our students ended up in Algebra 1, which I think makes the most sense, as most K-8 schools now, a majority of their students are in what they call Math 8, which is the Common Core math. Remember when Common Core came in, a lot of the algebra had been pushed into the 8th grade, and when Common Core came in, they pushed it back out into the high school. There's a continuous tension among K-12 and then the college levels. We think everyone needs to get through calculus to go to college. They say, don't teach them calculus, let us teach them calculus, because calculus is considered a college level course. So there's this sort of ongoing tension amongst those groups. And calculus is also helps students access some advanced science too. So there's usages for it. What I do want to say, I didn't have room to put a comparative chart, but our placement this year is pretty comparable to last year. There were no huge, like, oh my gosh, why is that so different? I know that I had a conversation with Trustee Ford around an increased number of Algebra Foundation classes at Redwood. But in fact, we had 116 ninth graders in Algebra Foundations last year, and we have 132 this year, and it's a larger class, so it's pretty proportional. There was not a big increase in Algebra Foundation students this year. They're a little more concentrated at Redwood than they have been in the past. But overall, the number is not significantly higher. Yeah.
I'm sorry if you said this and I missed it. I'm trying to remember, was last year the first year that we implemented this new standard that forbids?
No, this is our third year.
This is the third year. And so do we have longitudinal data? Because but it's just not in.
It's not in here. Like I was saying, I was looking at it. There's not a significant change. Our placement is consistent, and we do look at that with our math task force every year.
I didn't ask the question I meant to ask. I'm sorry. What I am curious about is whether the change in the law itself had if we see statistically an impact in the enrollment in these courses.
I don't have data for prior to that, and we also were teaching we weren't teaching Algebra Foundations, but I can look at, one of the things that the purpose of the law was to make sure more kids are A to G eligible, and one of the new requirements is that we are capturing that data each year and looking at it. And as I can tell you, it has not changed. That aspect hasn't changed over the last 3 years. Our math readiness for UC, if you will, has not changed since the implementation of this law. Is that your question, Michael?
Well, maybe it's a different way of getting at it, right? What I'm trying to determine in part is whether the law, it just strikes me that if we're going to try to determine whether the law is having a positive impact or an impact in the way that it's intended, you've got to compare it with what were the statistics prior to the inception of the law. And
or if our UC eligibility rates increase in math, right, over the course of these years.
I suppose that's a proxy for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the spirit of the law. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But, we're a little bit different in that the only course we have that is non-college recommending is Algebra Foundations. That is not the norm in a lot of high school districts or in high schools.
Meaning that they have a more extensive menu of courses.
A more extensive menu of courses that would be considered below grade level.
Right.
And that's really what this law targets, is not having kids be able to go through high school, get 3 years of math, and none of them be on grade level.
Sure.
I have a question on this slide too, and that is whether we have considered or have access to even more detail about gender, along gender lines, say in the Asian column of those 95 kids.
I did not break it out by gender.
You followed me, okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that might look like. I mean, I'm not giving you homework, but
Right.
as a mother of a female math student, you know, I'm just curious how many of the students who are at higher levels and lower levels.
So
fall
like what
into-
percentage that come in above algebra might be
Yeah.
girls?
I know you don't
Yeah.
have any spare time, but I'm just curious as a one mom.
Yeah, I can find out. I think usually Alina will tell me if something like that shows up, if there's a difference. And she ran all the data for me, but I can ask.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So this is just a graphical chart of the same data. So just some quick analysis. What has not changed is we do have an overrepresentation of African American and Latino students in algebra foundations. And African students are underrepresented in geometry, honors geometry, and not represented at all in advanced algebra. Those are all issues that we're aware of. They're historic issues, and we are taking measures to address them specifically, which I'll talk about in a minute. But just some placement information. The placements were pretty stable this year. We did not have a lot of movement once students were placed. What we did see, and this is a good thing, is that a few students after the first couple of weeks in Algebra Foundations were deemed to be ready for Algebra 1 with a little extra support, so they were pushed up to Algebra 1. And that's great. The teachers usually come and say, hey, I think these kids just need a little bit, and they'll be okay. And so that's what we like to see, that kids are pushed up and provided those opportunities. We didn't have very many appeals this year. So we didn't have people really contending where their students were placed. And we believe, to the best of our knowledge, students are placed appropriately. We do have the work from 4 years ago does provide a pathway for every student coming into our district to be UC eligible in 4 years. If you come in at Algebra Foundations, you have to take 4 years of math to get there, but it is possible. So we have pathways that all pathways lead to eligibility. Yeah.
We are staffing to ratio.
You have to turn it.
There seems to be a thing about those, yeah.
Yeah.
Then the opportunity to move up will impact another teacher's classroom.
Yeah,
How
and
do you
it does.
deal with that?
It does now.
It does now.
And in the math department, they amongst themselves have come to agreements where they staff their honors classes higher. They schedule their honors classes with larger numbers, and their Algebra Foundations and Algebra 1 classes with slightly lower. That's what they prefer. So there's some, So one of the new requirements, SB 359 was updated this year, and one of the new requirements is that part of the presentation that we provide you includes California State University and University of California mathematics requirement completion rates broken down demographically. So these are our completion rates specifically in math. These are not our overall completion rates. So these are our students who graduated in June, who met the UC requirement specifically in mathematics, which meant they passed intermediate algebra or higher. So, Michael, to your point, this is some of the longitudinal data we will look at, and this was, the hope is that this will reach 100% at some point.
Good luck.
Thanks. Our completion rates are significantly higher than the state or even the county average. I think the state average is about 40% overall. So we're doing okay.
So you're tracking this by feeder district as well?
We do.
Yeah.
We track placement by feeder. The feeders are very interested in their placement. We don't give them completion rate data because we don't break it down by, we don't have that granular.
I mean, we could, but it's a lot to get granular like that. But we do provide them where their students landed in the 9th grade. Yeah, check.
For students who are coming in at foundations, while there is a pathway, to get through advanced algebra, how realistic is that when you're dealing with students in the 9th grade who are lacking very basic arithmetic skills, as they progress through, how are they going to stay off the D, F, and I list?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're trying various approaches of support for, at TAM, we're doing the Success Network. We're also doing the math articulation with Willow Creek and MLK. We're doing a summer bridge program, and then supporting the kids throughout the fall semester. David Wetzel does a lot of that work. So there's a lot of simultaneous support while a student is in the class to catch them up while they're still learning the concepts of the class.
I mean, I would suggest that those students in the foundations class are going to continue to need support, extra support in math as they move through that sequence of courses.
Yeah, likely. I mean, and in our district, you have the opportunity to take Geometry A, which is a more supportive class, and Intermediate Algebra, which counts for UC's Algebra 2. Yeah. And those classes, historically in our district, we staff a little smaller. We schedule a little smaller for the purposes of providing extra support. So this is not new information. As I've shared, why does this matter? A lot of research out there shows that math sequencing can be one of the biggest gatekeepers. We're still waiting on some data. Last year, some of the CSUs stopped enrolling kids in remedial courses, and they entered all of their incoming freshmen into credit-bearing courses, and we're trying a model of providing them extra support to be successful in those credit-bearing courses. Because as we know, if a student has to remediate even one level, they're far less likely to complete a degree or a 2 or 4 year degree in 6 years. So it's really vitally important for persistence and completion rates that kids enter college ready, that they're prepared to be successful in those credit-bearing courses and don't have to try to remediate. So what are we doing to improve mathematics? The mathematics department, although it's a little harder this year without some of our days, but they have been working really hard to align content and rigor levels across all courses. And what they mean by rigor is that for each unit, they have sample problems that students should be able to complete, and they use that as a marker of like, this is the depth of knowledge we expect a student to know in this unit. So that helps them all understand, the difficulty level, the complexity of the problem, the complexity of the math literacy that is expected at each unit in each course. And they've been working really methodically through their courses. They finished advanced algebra and geometry last year. The math challenge group I already spoke to, that's down, they're like in 2.5 years now of that program. And we're seeing greater success. We saw fewer kids enter into algebra foundations this year. Still a challenge, we're still not there. But the idea of earlier intervention, and if we can really capture students at the end of 6th grade, to Chuck's point, we're much more likely to get them up to grade level by 9th. Chuck makes a good point. It's very difficult to accelerate a student 4 years. And also this year at Tam High, the math department was provided common prep periods for their Algebra 1, Geometry, and Advanced Algebra courses, which is a built-in time for collaboration, which just really strengthens that alignment and that rigor piece. We also have a 3-person team working with the county office, with Alan Schoenberg, I think is his name, from UC Berkeley. And he is the Mathematics Assessment Project, it's called MAP. And he has a framework he calls Teaching for Robust Understanding, and it's specific to math. And it's to some of what Barbara was saying about how do you build in those mathematical thinking skills? And they talk about ways of having kids engage in grappling with mathematics collaboratively, verbally. You know, if you go around, you'll see a lot of math talks happening now. And so that's been a really exciting development, and they're sort of in the middle of their professional development. So they meet every month at the county office as a cohort, and they've got ongoing embedded professional development from the county throughout the semester. Yeah.
So is TAM the only program that has a consistent feeder school that is below math average? Or if math average is the right term, but like...
No, each of the high schools has an Algebra Foundations course, and actually this year we have more kids at Redwood and more sections of Algebra Foundations at Redwood than we do at the other sites.
No, I just know that at TAM, like MVMS in the middle school comes in a lot higher consistently than
Oh, I see. You're saying, yeah.
Is that the only one of us that has that big, like it's clear kind of... I'm just out of
It's the
curiosity.
clearest difference. Well, here's some interesting data. MVMS actually, those students come in with the highest math scores in the entire district. So that feeder has those students come in with the highest sort of SBAC data and those kinds of data. So, you know, Redwood has far more feeder schools coming in, so there's a little more of a difference there. And then Drake really only has White Hill and then some very small schools. So TAM, that's the most discrete difference among the feeders.
How much movement was there this year of students who were placed in Algebra 1 going down to Foundations, you know, the first month, or kids in Foundations going up to Algebra 1?
We had more kids go up to Algebra 1 from Foundations than go from Algebra 1 down to Foundations. I only knew of like 3 that I heard of that went from Algebra 1 down to Foundations.
Yeah, so not a significant number at all.
No.
So that speaks well to the placement.
It does. And, you know, we looked at, we compared their placement and their ELMA data to their 8th grade SBAC data, which we now have, and it's very aligned. So, you know, it seems like the placement is working. Seems appropriate.
Thank you, Tara. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I think we're on to the first reading.
Oh, it's me. Sorry. Me again.
And my laptop just died,
Oh,
so
okay.
I had trouble seeing what the differences were.
So this is the math placement. So for the most part, and thank you, Laura, there's some
typos I have to fix. The biggest difference is the requirement that we report out the UC completion rates disaggregated. That was really the only substantive difference. The other changes are really stylistic and word choice, and they just came straight from CSBA. So this is just a new requirement that was added into our existing policy that I provide you with our UC completion rates in math.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Word choice, my favorite topic, Tara. Can you pull up the red line, please? Got it. Right, so the first place, I would say that there's a paragraph that starts with such placement, which...
Such placement protocols.
Yes, I would say the placement protocols. I don't think we need to say such. Speaking as a lawyer who deals with people who talk about such unnecessarily all the time, that's what I would suggest. And then on the second page, if we could scroll to the next one, if a student, parent, or guardian questions the student's placement, I would say the student may appeal, rather than having a binary he/she choice.
Or they. Yeah.
Yes, but they, of course, you know my opinion about that. So, but anyway, I would make those 2 changes. Those are my recommendations.
Thank you. I might ask if you just have wordsmithing, if you could just email it to me, so that we don't have to wordsmith the whole document here. That would just be my recommendation. I don't know that unless there's a substantive change, I'm not sure we need to wordsmith the document publicly. That would be my recommendation.
I have no substantive observations.
Thank you. And Laura did ask about pronouns, and I think that's a good consistent message to send. To consistently use they and them as our pronouns.
Yeah, I think consistency is good.
Any other comments or questions?
Okay, so if there's any other particular wordsmithing, just email me, and I can bring that back the next meeting with those changes.
Thank you, Tara. I think you need to stay put, though. I think you're up here for the fiscal advisory committee and budget update.
Oh, yeah. So as promised, we we took your feedback on the 3-year action chart, calendar, not sure what you call it. Table. We've got the thesaurus now.
Do you want to pull that up, really? There you go.
Okay, so just stylistically, thank you, we added the far right column, and to try to clarify that these would be, the duration of the savings, were they annual or not, and added some more things that were specifically requested into the document. So I don't know if there were questions or comments on the document specifically.
My only question is with respect to the 2 in a row that save $187,000 per year. I just want to make sure, because it's a rather unusual number, I want to make sure that's correct and not I just want to make sure that's correct.
Confirmed. Okay. Coincidental.
So we tried to capture as much of the sentiment of the board as we could. Les and I had a conversation. I think that we could potentially create, moving forward, some kind of like infographic that I think would speak more to how we used information. That we studied this and used that information. It's hard to do arrows and such in something like this. So in this, we were really just trying to capture a timeline of events. So when we were talking to the public, we could have something in one place that would say, well, we have been talking about this for years, and we've captured all of the conversations and actions that the board had over the past 3 years to come to the decisions that we've come to.
As you're thinking about formatting, I didn't really see it before, but I do see it now. It may be worth having separate columns for revenue and for reductions, because it does get a little bit confusing as you get into the parcel text numbers towards the end.
Thank you. I like having that extra column.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments? I suppose this is the same thing, if we think of something.
Yeah, if you think of something, and again, there's no action on this document. This would be a living document that we will continue to build upon as we move forward. I think it's also, we'll bring it to a fiscal advisory, which meets Monday.
Yes.
Monday. And I think it'll also help them with some of the big picture work that's been happening. We don't have any other update for you at this time since we're meeting with them on Monday. They're really now diving into the meat of the work, and they've considered feedback from broad stakeholder input from the surveys, from the Google Doc, from being out at sites, from emails, and their own work, and so they're really having conversations now around where is their alignment, and then where are some things that seem a bit off that we need to have a deeper conversation around. Yeah.
We just saw, we were scrolling through, and none of us figured out what was the print shop?
The print shop was exactly that. It was a print shop that lived in the courtyard, which is over by Tamalpais. And it was where we did in-house printing.
Oh, okay, sorry, we were all confused.
Good, thank you. Thanks.
So now recess for the public hearing, CSEA sunshine articles for TUHSD negotiations. Did you want to say anything, or just,
I'm happy to,
anyone wants to make a comment on
This is the public
CSEA Chapter 549's initial proposal? Seeing no comment, we'll reopen to item G, facilities update. Lars Christensen.
Good evening, everyone. First and foremost, want to acknowledge Director of Maintenance Operations, David O'Connor, is here this evening, as is Corbett Nelson, as you know. Mary, if you pull up the slide deck, please. So, in order to teach mathematics and all the rest that we do, we need buildings, and we need fields, and we need furniture, and all the other stuff that goes along with running a large institution like this one. As you know, we have 5 school sites, we have a corporation yard, and a couple of pieces of property that we own. Mary, next slide, please. Or I have this, I'm sorry, I apologize. So first and foremost, we need to take care of, the things that we own and operate. There are 3 primary funds that do that. There's Fund 14, which is essentially deferred maintenance. There's Fund 25, which is a recent arrival at the Tam Union High School District in the last couple of years. We've been collecting development fees. And then Fund 40 is a reserve fund for capital outlay projects, essentially the larger projects that come to us on a regular basis but aren't an annual maintenance cost. It's really important to know that both Fund 14 and Fund 40 come from our general fund. So while these are funds that are, we encumber for maintenance purposes and construction purposes and so forth, they come out of our big bucket of the general fund. So in terms of the M&O budget, we have a budget total, an operating total of essentially $3.5 million. It's broken up into 2 buckets. There's a restricted bucket. Is this money primarily to maintain? I didn't do anything, I swear.
It's outside.
Oh, was that outside?
Is that
Yeah,
outside?
it was on the window back here.
Oh, okay. This fund is used primarily to maintain our facilities, and any unspent funds carry over. We typically spend roughly 80% of that budget and carry over about 20% from the restricted M&O budget. Unrestricted funds, roughly $1 million. That money is used for general operations for the most part and custodial supplies, of which, as you can imagine, keeping this place up and running and clean on a daily basis, we use a lot of supplies. No carryover in that budget. What we don't spend goes away, so we tend to use it all. So Fund 14, one of the 3 primary funds that we use to cover all of our facilities costs. As you're aware, because Octobe has brought to you our local control funding formula and associated LCAP, facilities maintenance is a component of the LCAP. It's actually also subject to complaint under the Williams Act. In other words, if your facilities aren't maintained to a proper degree, the public can say, hey, that's not right. So the state requires, this is their word, not mine, or their statement, not mine, that facilities be maintained in good repair, so that hence they are in the LCAP, the whole facilities piece. School districts are required to allot regular contributions through deferred maintenance account. We do that. Our Fund 14 receives an annual contribution of $357,000 from our general fund. Now that figure, my first question and looking at all this, putting it together, was why 357? And the governing board, more than a decade ago, allotted that sum of money. So beyond that, I'm not sure why they came up with that number, but that's been with us for quite some time. Yes, no, Laura, go ahead.
What is good repair?
Good repair, that's an interesting question. I think fully functioning facilities, clean facilities, there shouldn't be broken windows or torn shades or you know, yeah, safe, well-maintained facilities.
Health and safety.
Yeah. We began Fund 14 this fiscal year, with essentially $1.5 million in the account. Here are some examples in the 18-19 school year, if you look up on the upper left-hand side, 18-19 school year, of things that we spent this money on. From repair of the road adjacent to San Andreas. I'm not going to read it all to you, but again, we maintain, we have little cities that are under our authorization, and so we got to take care of them. And so I'm happy to answer any questions. David's here too, specific to some of our expenses in 18-19, but you see them there on the list.
What's a BARD unit?
That's an air conditioning unit that sits typically on the outside of a portable classroom. They're mounted on the exterior wall.
I believe that paint doors farms is misspelled.
Oh, yeah, door frames.
Door frame. Oh, yeah, you're right. Yes, thank you. That's a good catch. That's a good catch.
I'm surprised Laura didn't get that one.
Should be frames, not farms. Yeah.
I'm losing it.
So in 1920, that's next year, we anticipate the following deferred maintenance work. You can see some parking lot work in the Drake High School, on the Drake High School campus. Some AC units at Tam High, and roof replacement on classroom number 9 down at San Andreas. And
Lars?
estimated costs.
Lars?
Yes.
Those, room number 9, is it one portable, or is it that whole block of portables under, when you say room 9?
It would be the building itself.
The building, because
Yeah.
that just seems
Yeah, it's the building itself.
incredibly pricey for a roof, on a flat roof. I know you can't argue it, but wow. Just seems, wow.
Yeah, I won't read this to you, but 2021, you see more deferred maintenance. We do our best to stay on top of it. I will say, I really need to commend not just David, but his M&O crew. We run really lean down there, and there's a lot to do every single day, and they do a good job keeping up with it. And then projections in the out years.
Yep, typo.
Contract.
Description. Michael
Yes,
found it.
yes. I gotta start moving through these slides quicker.
Let's make him go blurry.
It's on the top of all of them.
Fund 25, Capital Facilities Fund. As you are aware, because this board put it in place, we now collect developer fees. And developer fees are just that. Those are fees charged to developers as part of the cost of doing business in this area. One of the things that keeps Marin County beautiful and green is that there isn't a lot of development here. So the funds we collect, we don't collect large sums of money, but and we do split all of our developer fees with all of our feeder districts. So we get a small percentage of that, and I believe it's 4/13, if I'm thinking or remembering correctly. And again, Fund 25 is collected from local developers or other local agencies as part and parcel of property improvement or development. Any interest raised by developer fees must be kept in that same fund. You see that at 17-18 we collected $185,000. We began the year with essentially $108,000, and this money must be used for capital improvement, on facilities work. Fund 40, this is the big one. Reserve Fund for Capital Outlay Projects. This is where we save our money for large-scale projects that we do our best to predict going forward. It also allows for the accrual of other non-restricted revenues or other funds that we can, move into this large umbrella fund. We have been contributing $270,000 from the general fund on an annual basis here. The state used to require it, it no longer does. but we've wisely kept doing that because we have significant expenses. Again, the $270,000 figure, and doing some research, I can't really tell you why that was the figure that was decided upon by previous administration, but it's been well over 10 years since that number was derived. And we began the year with about $2.5 million in the fund. So here's where David and Corbett and I sat down, I don't know, roughly a month or so ago, and tried to map out the next 10 years and the big projects coming, because that's what Fund 40 is really all about, is taking care of large-scale projects. And Corbett plugged in at our request a 3% inflator over the cost of each year. But you can see, I have a pointer on this thing there, you know it? Red? There we go. So we have a lot of synthetic turf fields under our jurisdiction, and those fields, I was asked a question today, they come with an 8-year warranty. Their lifespan is roughly 8 to 10 years. We replaced Drake and Redwood approximately a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I guess. Those each ran 13 years, which was pretty remarkable. And in terms of when do they get replaced, yes, we look at warranty. We also, more importantly, look at GMAX testing, GMAX ratings. They have to be tested on an annual basis to make sure that they are essentially cushy enough to be playable. So we anticipate replacement in 8 years. That doesn't mean that will occur. We'll continue GMAX testing on an annual basis, and we could maybe push those out some. At the same time, much like painting your house or taking care of your roof, you don't want to play catch-up. You want to make sure you're replacing them before they fail that GMAX test. We just have to look up the street to our neighboring district. Terralin's football field was out of commission for well over a year because it failed a GMAX test, unexpectedly so. So they had to play at San Rafael and all over the county, including on some of our facilities, because their field, I think it's finally open, but it's been about a year and a half now. Yeah. And you can imagine the ire that raised in their community.
Did we charge them for wear and tear on our field?
Not specific to wear and tear, but we were a good neighbor and provided them a place to play. We also have swimming pools. We have very large, beautiful swimming facilities, but they require upkeep too, much like a synthetic field. So we try to plan pool maintenance. Again, it's significant money. We also oversee and actually own Red Hill Park. Gets a lot of wear and tear, significant cost to repair that field, and that's coming up in the not so near future, or in the very near future, I should say, just a couple years from now. And then we also have copiers and furniture and tech costs and so forth. So we tried to plan this out, as to when we need to make these repairs and take care of these maintenance things. As I noted a few minutes ago, we contribute now $270,000 to that fund. That is well short of what we're actually going to need when you look at the 10-year total. And you can see the deficit. If we continue to contribute this $270,000 annually with this 3% inflator, we'd be nearly $2 million short of what we really need to do these repairs. So we've got some thoughts here, addressing the Fund 40 shortfall. So we have some options. We can continue with the 270. But again, that brings us down the line to some significant deficits in terms of cost of these actual repairs or maintenance. We could look at a compromise between what we do now and fully funding, which would be option 3. That would be to up the annual contribution by $280,000 to a total of $550,000. That gets us closer. Or lastly, number 3, we could, contribute essentially $650,000 a year in order to not have any deficit when we got to that 10-year out period. We're not recommending this at this point, and that's back too far, sorry. We're not recommending this, but we wanted to show it to you. That would be an additional $380,000 to the $270,000 we currently contribute. Board does not need to make a decision this evening, but we wanted to provide you this information. We've got some significant fiscal challenges in our district. We also have lots of other worthy expenses coming our way over the course of the next few years, having nothing to do with facilities. But at the same time, this is real. They have value, and it costs money to keep them up. So, as I say, we do need to continue to think about Fund 40 on a very regular basis. And really commend not just current board, but past boards for continuing to contribute to the fund, even though they didn't have to any longer. Questions, comments? Barbara?
Do we have any clue as to how much our rental fees go towards closing any of that gap? Not much, I'm guessing.
Not much. I was asked a question today again about rental fees specific to the pools. As you remember, I believe you remember, in 2016, Sally Swan and Chris McCune worked on that. And we raised rents to the cap. Corbett now is working with Chris McCune and looking at Bay Area market rates and so forth, and seeing if we can get those rents up a little higher specific to the pools. It's not going to make a big dent. I mean, if it should certainly pay the heating bills and custodial costs and so forth, and hopefully. But again, as part of the Civic Center Act, you know, the spirit of the act is not that this is a money-making operation for a school district. It's to staff necessary personnel to keep them open for the public. It's to keep them in good repair. But it's really not to generate income. I mean, that is not the spirit of the act. After all, these were built with public funds.
Unofficially, we think we can raise them 7% compared to where it was a couple of years ago.
Can you go back to the table? Yes. I don't think, yeah. Just a general comment that, so let's go out to 2027, 28, and the 210,200, is it 210,252?
Sure.
So that number, you took present day costs and then escalated it by 3% every year to get to that? Okay, that was kind of a general question.
Yeah, and that's an educated guess.
Well, I guess that's where I was going, because on one hand, there was a slide suggesting, and I know this is not a decision of us adding extra funds of a certain dollar amount, but we're basing it on still somewhat of an arm wave, doing the best we can. So maybe if we look at it a little more generally, it would help.
They're projections.
They're it's hard to do. So, but yeah, it's good information. It's a good ballpark.
I'm really not being facetious, but I'd bet my house it's not going to be less than that.
Right. And that's a lot of it's just that, trying to get hands around what kind of precision are we looking at.
Short of getting a bid today and doing something, it's a bit of an...
No, I know. Sometimes it's hard to make a decision when you're looking out that many years.
Yeah.
And, but you have to do something, and it's a matter of when. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes we get a little blind to the numbers, but the numbers are staggering when you really think about...
And it's good. Sorry, you did a good exercise, yeah. No, I'm glad you did
that. I mean, it really... Yeah. Again, I think we're so used to now to these big figures, and we've been doing this pretty regularly now for a while, but the numbers are staggering.
And Mark, I think a few years ago when we replaced wheels, at that time we were estimating that they would be about 100,000, and they came in about 100,000 over that.
Yeah,
so even with our best guesses,
it's going to go up or down, but more likely up. Okay.
Lars?
Yes.
Or maybe Corbett. So when you were talking earlier about Fund, 14? You were indicating, I think, that the state, you don't have to go back, but you're indicating that the state mandated that interest.
Oh, that's Fund 25.
Fund 25 stays within there, right? So what happens to we've got here this set aside $2.5 million. Interest rates are slowly creeping up here. So what do we apportion interest that accrues among these various funds, or does it just go into our general fund revenue?
I honestly do not know.
What I do know is that the interest in all these funds get held at the county treasury, not the county office of education, but the Marin County Treasury. It's, as you can predict, a pretty low risk, low return investment, but my understanding is that all our funds, that interest gets held in the same fund. I don't know of any.
But we're not accounting, but I'm just looking at this spreadsheet that you got. I'm just trying to determine. So if this were a Fund 25 spreadsheet, you'd have an interest component, right? Because you're crediting the interest that accrues to that particular fund. But the way we account for this, we don't do that for Fund 40, is what I'm understanding from you?
To be honest with you, I don't know how we've done that. For all, the interest is the same across all of them, so highlighting in Fund 25, it's in my understanding it's across all our funds.
Yeah, okay. So with respect to the fields, I know I asked this question earlier. You indicated that Redwood was 13 years, and I don't know how long.
Drake was roughly the same, I believe, wasn't it, David? Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe, I went back, actually, I did find some materials, and I think there were some presentations made to the board that indicated, I think we have an 8-year warranty. I think it's a third-party warranty is the way it's described in the presentations. But as you're looking, it strikes me that you could be, with respect to the field, the cost of the fields, you could be looking at different scenarios in terms of lifespans of the existing fields. And this,
Yes.
I know we can't always predict what you've described in terms of the safety levels of the field, but this is kind of at the low end of what we could rationally expect, I would think. And so maybe we're thinking about whether, as you're planning ahead, whether 8 years is really the appropriate number to plan for.
We landed on 8 because that's the warranty. They warranty them for 8 years, but yeah,
Our experience has been
different. Yeah, our experience has been different. I can tell you that only because I used to work there, the Terra Linda field didn't go 10 years. It went, well, it might have gone 10, but I'm hoping we can get 10. We landed on 8 because of the warranty piece.
Yeah. Anyway, so it might be worth some additional consideration. We have multiple fields, so to take each one of them at the minimum, sort of the warranty. And also, I don't know, I remember, we had so many discussions about this. I thought we were experts at the time we were doing it, but of course, it's all passed out of my brain. But I thought there were some discussions about their upkeep options as well, without the entire field replacement. And I don't recall I may be not recalling that correctly, but.
There have been with limited results where you don't actually pull the turf, but you try and infuse it again with whatever fill you're using at the time. And quite frankly, some of the, 8-10 years is a long time in terms of facilities development. Remember, we went with our 2 recent fields, we went with a cork infill as opposed to rubber. Don't know what's going to be the preferred norm 8 years from now. It could be something very different. So.
Yeah. The other thing was, I don't want to belabor it. I just, 8 years was kind of stuck out to me a little bit. On the Redwood soccer line here, if I'm reading this correctly, there's a $709,000 cost in 2021-22, and then a $479,000 or $480,000 cost in 2028-29. And I'm wondering if that is accurate, or if that's meant to be on a different line, or what's the cause for the difference there? Unless I'm not reading it all the way across.
Could be TAM football.
That's right.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be here. Well, no. Let me get back to you on that. I don't want to get.
No, because TAM football, if we're right, presumably it would be something akin to.
It should.
Well,
that
TAM
would be-
football's up above. That's the first line item. So I didn't notice that earlier today, but.
Let me look at that again, and I'll send you an email.
I have 2 questions on this table. Who uses Red Hill Park Field? Is it anyone outside of Drake students?
Yes, we rent that facility very regularly to other schools. It's also a playoff place for lacrosse and soccer and so forth. A lot of folks use that, of all ages, many schools.
And is San Anselmo is Red Hill still being considered as a place to rip up and use as a floodplain?
I haven't been privy to those conversations since they were brought to this board quite some time ago. I don't know, David, if you have. I've heard absolutely nothing from them. But for the rest of the board, if you don't recall, it was a proposed catch basin for flood control at one time. That was in the conversation.
I'm just curious.
I haven't heard anything from them.
Okay. And then the Tam High elevator line is empty?
It is.
It's question mark.
It is, because we still don't have the report with the estimate. I'm hearing, though, from the elevator consultants, which we're all in the wrong line of work, we should be elevator consultants, that the repair may not be as expensive as they originally had stated. I knock on wood when I say that. But we still do not have a firm figure.
All right, I feel like we're getting into the weeds here a little bit, but it's on the spreadsheet. With respect to copiers, do we buy our copiers?
We have been buying copiers. I would like us to move to leasing copiers.
Yeah, I mean, my experience, certainly at the office level, not, right, I mean, there's a huge, right, people rent copiers all the time, and there are all these businesses that lease copiers and finance leases and et cetera, and before we go out and buy that kind of machinery, seems to make sense to assess, compare the economics of the two options.
Corbin and I will work on that. Yes.
We did that a few years ago, so I think I'll try to pull some of that data up, because I know we used to lease, and then we switched to purchasing because of a financial decision. That was now like 8 years ago, though. So I'll see if we can find that information and pull it out and re-examine it.
I'm actually meeting with the company rep on Wednesday.
Well,
Yeah.
I know somebody in this business. He's a salesman, but he's been doing it a long. So, telling you that, but he's been doing it a long time. And if I'd be happy to make the connection if you think it'd be worthwhile in the leasing business, copier leasing.
Thank you.
I do have a question about something that might not fall under this. It's the Redwood portable bathroom, restroom.
Yes. Grand opening on November 1st.
Oh, it's getting
First,
christened?
I mean, when I say first flush, there's been unofficial flushes, but the first real flush will occur on November. We're thinking that the superintendent may want to be the first one in there.
No.
But yeah, they are both set to open on November 1st. And I have to tell you the truth, they look a heck of a lot better than I was really worried they were going to be, not an eyesore, but but they've actually come out really nice. Yeah, there's no half moon in the door or anything like that. They're actually pretty nice.
Did you have to take down a tree?
Yes.
I was expecting uproar, me and trees, and
There was a little bit of uproar, but it essentially was a big weed. It was. I mean, it was a. It emanated from likely a bird many years ago, and the tree grew. It was not. It wasn't a majestic oak or a big redwood or anything like that. It was a big weed.
Okay.
It's in a rather prominent place, right along Doherty. Have you thought about signage?
We're going to need to do a little landscaping. Dave and I actually talked about some sod, too, and yeah, we've got to dress it up a little bit. And there's another one that's equally beautiful out adjacent to the baseball field, and that will service the portables that are out there. They're actually very nice. I'm being very serious. You need to do a tour. They're very nice.
We need to have a board tour.
Yeah,
So large, what I was trying to suggest was there could be a revenue opportunity in terms of signage on this. But the one out at Doherty, right, that gets a lot of.
That's true. We could, just like the baseball park, it could be the,
I thought you were going to say revenue opportunity, get $1 a flush or something.
No, we didn't. Coin operated, locks on the door. No, we didn't do that. Yeah. The one, just in all seriousness, the one on the Doherty Drive side is primarily for our female students, because that, in doing the study, that they were really lacking stall space. There is also faculty but it's primarily female. And then on the baseball side, it's even up, men and women, faculty.
Do we need to talk about this anymore? Or
I think no. No. Okay. I'm just glad with the new superintendent. She saves the best for last. I mean, she truly does. Saves the best for last of the agenda. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Lars.
And Michael, I will email you.
We haven't had someone from the community donate a significant amount of money to get naming rights.
No, I can't remember who said it, Laura or Michael, but maybe.
Well, we could do that for the 3 leaving board members.
Point of
and Anderson toilets.
Point of interest, I ran that $357,000 for Fund 14 through a CPI calculator, and it's 411 in today's dollars. So we're spending, we're contributing 15% less effectively than we did 10 years ago. And with the cost of building materials, we're not getting much for that 85%.
And we still have a carryover, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, good.
Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
So this is another updated policy. This is communication. The major change in this one was to make sure our communications are accessible to including individuals with disabilities, and making sure that we are providing translation services. That was the big change in this policy. I think I had a question around, I don't anticipate there being significant cost to this. We already do translation services, and now a lot of, our mass communication system comes with a built-in translator. A lot of things do now. Our website has a translation button where someone can choose to view it in multiple languages. And accessibility for our website is already part
You
of.
already did all that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any questions?
No.
Comments? Okay, so
Thank you.
we're on to trustee reports. Ms. Anderson?
Oh, don't we have one more?
Oh, I missed it. Which one are we missing?
12I?
12I, yep.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, okay. She walks backwards.
Sorry, yeah. So this is an update that is required by state law. The biggest change in this one, we already had the defibrillators, but is that we're required now to train all coaches in recognition of heat illness. So that's really the big change. I ran this by our athletic directors to let them know. I don't think it's new to them. I think this is something that has been part of what they do, particularly, out at Drake and in August, you get some really hot days out there in that field, as well as in the spring. But this is a required update around athletics.
Can I just shout out, thank you, Lars, because I know your organization has done all the legwork to have all this training available for folks, and it's been ongoing, has it not? This is not new.
Yeah, this is really a welcome addition to all of the other trainings that are required by coaches, ADs, and so forth, because this is a killer. Heat stroke is a killer, as we've seen too many examples of in cross country.
Recently, yeah.
Yeah. Latest one being University of Maryland this past August.
Yeah. Questions or?
Good.
Okay,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
now we're done. Trustee reports, anything, do you want to start, Laura? You want to share with the rest of us? We need to know
Yes,
about?
I'll be quick. So Michael doesn't get mad at me here. Budget talks at Drake and Tam were interesting. Corbett, good presentation, Corbett and Tara. I wish more people had attended all of those. Tam, we had a pretty good turnout. But I like the consistent messaging, and giving people an opportunity to understand our budget can only be a good thing. It's time away from home, but I thought those were really good. I don't know, did any of you trustees go to the school's rule event, or anyone from the, you went? Okay. I was just going to report out, I don't know if we have this on an agenda later down, but the school's rule organization doled out $113,050 to our 5 sites by ADA. And it was interesting to see how the schools are using the funds, and I'm just grateful for that organization, especially since we're going through some budget challenges. I went to the water polo championships that one of our student trustees mentioned. Must have been was Maddie, because Drake prevailed, both the girls and the boys against Ham. And then finally, Measure J has been mostly what I've been working on. And read your emails and texts. Sometimes I text you. I think things are going well, and we shall see what happens a week from tonight. There are going to be a lot of get out the vote opportunities for all of us to call, to hold up signs, to do whatever floats your boat. But really, we need to get the voters who we identified as supporters to get out and vote. I think I'm done.
Okay. Michael?
Laura and I attended the the most recent fiscal advisory committee meeting. I want to commend staff for doing a very nice job in conducting those discussions and in getting, as Corbett continually describes, from the 30,000 foot level to the, I don't know what foot level we are at right now, but we're substantially lower to the ground than when we started. But those, I think, are productive discussions, and you can see, I can see in the quality of, I guess this one was joint with the LCAP committee, right? The last one. But I thought that the quality of the discussion, where people came in, I think, or at earlier meetings, and I think we're talking in kind of what I would say were predictable ways based on the constituency that they represented, and I'm detecting that there's been an educational process that's gone on, and people are able to view things, at least by some of the comments that were made, a little bit more broadly than the perspective that they had when they walked in the door. And I think that's a credit to the job that you're doing. So I think that's useful. That's it.
I would like to acknowledge Laura and Leslie for all the work they've been doing on behalf of Measure J. It's too late to say, can I say that? I said it.
Yeah, it is too late.
Too late. And also to CFT for their providing some extra funds to kick that off. That kind of collaboration is very special, and we're going to continue to need it, from what I can tell, for the next 3 years. I attended negotiations where I was an observer, happy one. Good collaboration, I thought, really good energy, and very respectful and supportive. And what else? Just want to thank everyone, particularly Tara, who provided some information about our family and our current situation that was very much appreciated certainly by me and all of our family and our friends and our colleagues here. Can't thank you enough for that. That's it.
Okay, well, I went to JLAC in Barbara Stead. So the 3 major items that were discussed were SB 328, the late start for school, the 8:30, which we knew from the last time had been vetoed by Governor Brown. But it will be back. Senator Portantino, who is carrying it and is determined to get it through, is chairman of the Appropriations Committee. That's why it passed. It went from 25 votes to 41, simply because he got the chair of the committee and could swap stuff. Gavin Newsom's position is unclear, so we don't know if he will sign it or not sign it when it goes through next time. The AB 1951, which is the swapping out of the SAT for the SBAC test, that passed both houses. Governor Brown vetoed it. He thought the timing was wrong, but it's going to get revisited. Thurmond and Tuck both support it. Newsom's position is unclear. And then there was a lot of, from Jeff Frost, a lot of thinking about what Gavin Newsom is likely to do. Clearly, there's going to be charter school reform in no small measure because the charter school industry pumped $20 million into Antonio Villaraigosa's campaign against him and paid for a bunch of attack ads. He's a big fan of early childhood education, cradle to career, but it's all very, what he wants to do is all very expensive, so it's questionable.
Who are you talking about? I'm sorry?
Newsom.
Newsom.
Oh, sorry.
Newsom. And there's no sense of where he comes down on local control for schools at this point. So that's it for JLAC.
So let's see, real brief. I'm writing little notes here. Main thing I think I want to share is that, it has been a busy few weeks, and it's been kind of an interesting array of experiences, and working on the parcel tax has afforded me the opportunity to hear more directly from our community, and hearing directly again from people that really are feeling pinched and resentful about paying more, taxes, and actually hearing their stories has been helpful. But the majority of the people that we've heard from are very supportive and very appreciative of the language in the parcel tax and what we're doing. So I have gone from that to then I also attended the workshops at the high schools that Corbett and Tara presented, and to hear the community respond, and actually somebody at the TAM presentation, one of the parents said, gee, we have felt like this has been a black hole. Thank you so much. Thank you. We've wanted this information, and thank you, board members, for hiring Tara. And so that was another perspective. Yeah, you're welcome. So that was another, perspective and reminder of how this day-to-day communication, two-way communication is so important. And even the one person in particular I was speaking to as I was canvassing, that by the end of the conversation, we clearly had an understanding of each other and respect. And so that's what we're looking at for the next, probably forever, at this district. We're a lot more, I think, aware of how much we need. But working on this parcel tax has really brought home to me how important communication every day is in our district, whether it's our website, communicating all the good work that I know is coming out of cabinet that's going to the broader community. And so I've just really appreciated that. And then I ended the week on a very high note with Trustee Anderson watching water polo, and then it reminded me that's what it's all about. Seeing these young, healthy, excited kids out there working their heart out, playing and rooting each other on. There's a lot to be
in beautiful pool.
I did comment on that. I thought, God, it's
well-maintained.
And a well-maintained pool.
Beyond good
the
repair.
plaster work was beautiful. So, you were back, and we admired the elevator from afar. But yeah, we did. Laura was looking at it. So. So anyway, it's just been a very, it feels like it's been a full spectrum, and we have big challenges ahead of us, but it's sure different. We've got a great team in place, and we're going to meet it together, so it's very good. And I almost adjourned the meeting, I'll have you know. Thank goodness I turned the page. So board communications, I don't know that we had anything this time. Just one.
Richard Marshall.
Oh, that's right. Right. I just wanted him. That was very nice. He and I did a precinct walk together in Mill Valley a few weeks ago, and when you knock on a door and they find out it's a teacher, you almost, what a difference. It's like I wanted to start saying I'm a teacher, but but obviously I couldn't do that. It was great.
It's a different reaction when you tell them you're a trustee.
Yeah, sometimes it's good, sometimes not so much. So you kind of gauge it. Yeah. I was on a phone bank with Trustee Anderson, and I could hear the person on the other end of the phone as when she said she was a trustee. Well, you're the problem, is what she had to hear. So anyway, we have a lot of, you know, positive and challenging. So public comment. Is there anyone like to make a public comment? Okay, no public comment. So we'll conclude. The next meeting is November 13th, and then December 11th is the following one after that. Meeting adjourned.